Hey guys, this is Miss Mauve for number 4 of Test 1 review. Don't forget that if you don't do that test review for at least a 70, you will get a 0 on the test and you will never get to make it up. So you have to do that test review. The only way that you will be able to do that test review late is maybe if you have a doctor's note that said you had mono for 2 weeks or something like that. But otherwise, you have to do that test review in order to take your test. Okay, so let's look at number 4. It gives you a picture. I blew it up because it's not that great. I'm going to trace the f of x, that means the y, and the x-axis because I can't see anything. Okay, there we go. Whew. And then this problem, this problem was asking all about as x approaches 1. So for this problem, it's asking for limit as x approaches 1 from the left, pretty much like the last video. X approaches 1 from the right, the limit as just x approaches 1, and then f of 1. So this is pretty much like the last video, only I chose a different part of the graph to look at, so hopefully we'll get some different answers. Okay, so if we're looking for x approaches 1, first we look at our x-axis and we find 1. Well, here she is, halfway in between 0 and 2. Okay, then we have to figure out the left piece of the curve and the right piece of the curve. So if this is 1, the left piece is this part that's going side to side, and it looks like it has an open hole. So I'm just gonna draw it really big so you can see it, and then bam. So this is the left side. I spelt that wrong. I put lefty. Okay, left. Okay, then let's look at the right side of this curve. The right side to the right of 1 looks like it starts at a closed hole and then goes something like this. Okay, so this is the right. Okay, and let's remember, when you have that little negative in the air, that means you look at the left side. So this first limit as x approaches 1 from the negative, that means the left. When you have a plus sign in the air, that means the right. When you don't have anything in the air after the 1, it means you consider both. And then when you have this f thing, that means you write down the y value for the closed hole or the solid curve. But it's still when x is 1 because there's a 1 in that parentheses. So for all of this, we're looking at when x is 1. I almost wrote that wrong. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, let's do the left side. As we approach x is 1, here's x is 1, and as we approach it from the left, chugga, 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 my y value is whatever this is. How many down is this? It looks like -1 because the next number is -2. Okay, so the y value right here is -1. It does not matter that there's an open hole. Okay, now let's look as x approaches 1 from the right. So let me find when x is 1. Hey, cover up everything on the left and follow in from the right. So as I approach x from the right, x is 1 from the right, it's saying, what is my y value? It's whatever this sucker is, whatever this y value is, which I think is 1. So the limit from the left is -1, from the right is 1. But then when we look at just x approaches regular 1, we have to consider the previous 2. So since the previous 2 don't match, because there's a jump, a vertical jump in the graph, so since the previous 2 don't match, we're gonna say does not exist. And we say that because the last 2 don't match. If they did match, it would be like number 3 on the test review in the previous video. Okay, this last sucker says f of 1, and that means you either write down the y value from the closed hole or the solid piece of the curve when x is 1. So let's find when x is 1. right here-ish, there's 2 points I can look at. But I'm supposed to look at the closed hole. So I'm not looking at this green guy. I'm just looking at this orange closed hole. And it's saying, what's the y value at this closed hole? Well, I think it's 1. So f of 1 is 1 because you use the closed hole y value. We do not use the open hole y value. Okay, let's keep going. Ooh, look at this one. Crazy. Okay, number 5. First, I'm going to trace my x and y axis because I can't see them. And if you guys want to do this whole tracing thing, next to your picture in your homework, you should have something that looks like a circle with like a little box through it and maybe a arrow. Is that what it looks like? Anyway, that means make it bigger. And then you can just copy and paste it or something. Or you can also print out this whole review. There should be a button somewhere, like where view an example would be, or under settings, there should be a button to print. Okay, anyway, let me trace the y, or the x-axis. Okay, so let's see. All of these suckers are asking about -3. So we want to know what the limit as x approaches 3 from the left. Oh, that's supposed to be a negative sign. 3 from the left. The limit as x approaches 3 from the right. The limit as x approaches 3. And then let's go ahead and find f of 3. Okay, so 3 with a negative in the air means the left. And let me find -3 on the x-axis. Here's the x-axis. Here's 0. -3 is left. 1, 2, 3. Okay, here's -3. Now let me highlight the left piece. So here's -3, and to the left of it is... Oh, and it looks like there's an open hole right there. Okay, now let me look to the right of -3. The piece to the right of -3, yes, is this V, and yes, is this curve, but we want what's directly to the right, like the piece that's connected to that open hole I just circled. So the piece connected to the right is like that. So that's the piece we're going to be looking at from the right. Then for x approaches just regular 3 with nothing in the air, that's when we consider both. And then lastly, for f of 3, that's where we look at the closed hole or the solid piece of the curve when x is 3. And we write down the y value. So this is the same as number 3 and 4 from the review, only we should get a couple different answers. Okay, so let's see here. As we approach -3 from the left, we go down, we're getting closer, we're getting closer, we're getting closer. The y value, it looks like it's down 3. So -3. It's okay that there's an open hole. That's not the part that matters right now. It's just the y value that matters. Okay, now let's look at -3. Here's x is -3. And let's come in from the right. Whoop. Okay, so if we come in from the right, we still land at that same y value of -3. So this right-hand piece of the curve, as I get closer to x equals 3, we stop at this open hole, and this open hole has a y value of -3. Okay, now for x approaches 3, we consider the last 2 answers. Since from the left and the right were the exact same answer, -3, that means the limit as x approaches just regular 3 is the same answer, -3. So if your left and right are the same, that's what you put on x approaches 3. If they're different, you put does not exist, like the last problem. Okay, then lastly, for f of 3, we look at the closed hole, or the solid piece of the curve when x is negative 3. Well, here's x is negative 3, and I see a open hole, and you can barely see it. There's a closed hole right here. You can barely see it, but it is a closed hole, and so his y value is 1. So f of 3 is 1. So for f of 1, if there's an open hole at negative 3, you don't write down that y value. You look up or down to find a closed hole, and then you write down that y value.